Hello YouTube. If you watched the series of videos, you obviously know this is a light shaver. I'm doing the fourth video for this. Might be the last video, might not. I want to talk about other stuff in the deck, possibly in a fifth video, but at the moment this is going to be the last video for this group. This is the trap cards for Constellars. Now, the trap cards is usually what turns out to be tech in many other decks, because outside of the staples and what staples you actually choose, trap card lineups vary from player to player. It depends on play style, what's commonly used at the time, and what's in your side deck. So I'm not gonna try to talk about the staples, but I'll just count all of it. Well, not senses, but staples, run how many of them you want to run. If you think you need to run all of them, but turn to tributes good in the deck because it matches with Omega's group lance ability. So summon Omega, torrential, Omega's effect, protected all your Constellar monsters, wiped out all the other monsters on the field. And that's the notable interaction between Constellars and the staple trap cards. The rest of them is good in situations. Close to Ace always good, balance always good. Most people like warning. Trap's just okay, so it's how you feel about them. Trap's done. Since Heavy Storm's gone, something usually has to make up the void of Heavy Storm being gone, even though the staples got hit too. Trap's done could also be used if you need to negate traps while keeping your vanity up. It gives you a ton of trap card negation. You can play it, then you have your field set up to summon a Pleiades or you swarm Excite Night. And that's the uses of trap stun. Some people side trap stun and use it over tornado, which I thought I added to this pile, but I didn't. So I'll go to it later for the people who can't remember what card I'm talking about, even though everyone knows this tornado. XYZ Reborn. Born's an XYZ monster from your graveyard, attaches itself to its XYZ material. I recommend this mainly only in turbo builds because it gives them another form of disruption, and they want to keep the XYZs on the field as much as possible, which while you do want to do in a normal Constellar deck, XYZ Reborn has a chance of being dead more often because the turbo deck is built to get the XYZ summon off almost every other turn, or not compete while your deck is made the XYZ, but also consistency and a few other aspects that keep you from XYZ summoning as much as a turbo build. If you really want something in the main deck to bring XYZ monsters back, you should probably choose Call the Haunted, just because Call the Haunted can also bring your other monsters back. Bringing back Sombres or Cuss is usually just as good as bringing the XYZ monster back, because you can XYZ off of them. This is bounceable by Pleiades. A Magic Planner target if you do run Magic Planner. Downside to this though is it could be MST. If you do for some reason run this outside of a turbo build, don't run 3. 2, or in this case possibly 1 could work. Memory of the adversary, overlooked card. It has some potential on later formats because it doesn't target. So outside of Bujin's Constellar, Yamamoto, or Noble Knights. Well, Noble Knights don't want to lance the XYZ monster already doing that, but they're gonna lose those monsters, and that monster's gonna come to your side of the field, and your opponent's next in phase. Since it doesn't target, it could be used to get over some things in the mirror match or Bujin match, or possibly even a 5-hit match. It could come handy a bit because you could XYZ summon off of what you took from Bujin's or the mirror, and 5-hits you might take a bear that you could actually use when you get it, or another 5-hit monster that could possibly generate a 5 formation from your deck. Vanity's one of the most common played continuous trap cards. This format is frail, as if a card gets sent from your deck or field to the graveyard, it will be destroyed. Locks out special summons, which is obviously good. Detaching an XYZ monster is not the same as sending it from the field to the graveyard. It's bounceable by penalties, a magic plan target, and can shut some decks down. And with Mucker's Cosmo or Banisher of the Radiance, a pretty strong card. I don't recommend maxing out at 3 though, or if you do want to run 3, I recommend the 3rd being your side deck. Safe Zone, good defensive card. Doesn't get enough credit at times. Make many monsters hard to get over. Has all continuous trap cards. Could be popped by MST, but MST doesn't have the time to handle every card in the game, since you only could run 3 MSTs, and you running more than 3 cards your opponent wants the MST. So they might MST other cards, but they have a harder time playing around this than they would most likely the other cards. Bounceable by penalties, so put it on the opponent's attack position monster, bounce it, pop the monster. Gotta keep your safe zone. Similar thing with Magic Planner. Omega can use his effect to become immune to safe zones effects, and it doesn't separate safe zone from targeting it. So at the end phase, it'll be underneath safe zones protection again. Run 2 at max if you want to run it. 3 clocks. I tried 3. Venus Chain. This is the main form of monster negation I recommend, because stopping the attack in Constellars is actually pretty powerful, because if you could save a Constellar monster on your field, you could possibly XYZ summon with it next turn, which is obviously good. It's continuous, so it continues to stop the monster from attacking or activating its effects. I tried 3 of this. 3 actually doesn't clog with this card, in my experience. It's a pretty good card. If you run Magic Planner, obviously another Magic Planner target. These 4 is the best Magic Planner targets currently. And if you don't run Magic Planner, I still recommend this over the other form of a effect negation. Pole position is just another magic planar target. Makes the highest monster immune to spell cards. If it's destroyed, destroy that monster at the highest attack on the field. It has uses, but not as much uses as it could have had. It's still an okay card though, but I don't recommend it. Like one of the heavens, I believe this is going to be one of the most newly used trap cards in the coming formats, because XYZ monsters is common. Synchro monsters is being used now again. This only works on the head of summons, but it has no attack restriction. It's a counter trap card, so your opponent can't chain to it unless they run another counter trap card, and counter trap cards is not common in the game at the moment. If you are annoyed by extra deck monsters, you should consider running Black Horn or two copies of Black Horn. Really depends on how much you're afraid of extra deck monsters and how much space you actually have in your deck. XYZ block. This one is slightly a bit more gimmicky, but you're usually gonna have XYZ monster on your field. This covers one of Omega's weak spots. It's okay, but I'm not gonna recommend this either, but it can be a decent choice for monster negation. It might get worked in the turbo build. If you try to create one in a normal build, you could attempt to use it, but I still recommend Phoenix Chain as your main form of monster effect negation. Dark Bribe, because some people like to use Dark Bribe. I don't have much experience with Dark Bribe. Wherever you negate, better be worth the negate, cause you are replacing the card that they negated. So you gotta know carefully when to negate a spell and trap card activation, because it is a -1, but it's a -1 that can be devastating at times. It's up to the player. Breakthrough skill, another form of monster negation. This one isn't continuous, however, and it don't suffer from mystical space typhoon popping. You also get a second use of it in the graveyard, even though the second use of it is quite limited. As always, for the not continuous track cards, the monster negations, is totally up to the player which ones they want to use. But if you do breakthrough skill, I only recommend 2 copies, because all it does is negate effects, like also stopping an attack. So drawing 2 at once or 3 at once won't be as good. Now this is the real gimmick card I put in here. To be quite honest, I didn't even know at front when I started this video this was even in here, but this card has potential on the possible formats, because 5 Fists is gonna be common, and decks run a decent amount of trap cards now. People often set 3. You may also have some face up spell or trap cards that could combo with a few spell and trap cards. It's extremely gimmicky though, so you could experiment with it, but don't expect the results to be that great. But if I remember correctly, this card is only a short print from wherever booster pack it's in. So in real life, you could try to experiment with it as a cheap option compared to some of the rest of these cards. And look, it's only going for 8 cents. Constellar Travelers or luck card can be quite an annoying luck card though. It's another continuous target. If for some reason you need to find another continuous trap card target to be a target for Magic Planner, that's why I have these two in here, because depending on how the next format go, Vanity might have to go from the deck, and these three is solid in the deck as is, but you really want a fourth card because 3 of this isn't too great. 2 is perfect. I don't know if you'd want 3 calls, and 3 chains is fine, but you probably should have a 8th target in the deck for Magic Planner, and that's mainly why this is in here. Last card in here from this pile is Scout and Scarecrow, negating the attack on the Constellar monster. Like I said earlier, can be key at times. This is reusable, so you have this every turn, and your opponent can only overrun XYZ with 1 monster. Obviously, you're in great shape because that monster isn't getting ran over. It's also great MST bait to save your other trap cards that you want to actually use. It's a pretty decent tech choice. I've seen it work well in a few duels. If you watch one of my other videos, you probably actually seen me play against someone who used this card. They did quite well with it. Now I'm gonna move on to the side deck pile. I only put 11 cards in here. Well, I should say 12 because there's also Dust Tornado, which I never went to again. Dust Tornado could be main deck or side deck. It's basically just a slower MST with a secondary effect that people don't use, or if it is used, it's rarely used. I recommend having at least 2 in the side because during game 2 and game 3, your opponent's obviously gonna side in cards against you, and you're gonna need to stop some of those side deck cards they siding in. And Dust Tornado is a good card to stop those cards. Now, I mentioned in the spell video about this versus Twister. This could destroy any spell or trap card, unlike Twister, which can only destroy face-up spell and trap cards. So Dust Tornado has it beat in that category. Dust is probably safer to use than Twister, as Twister has a meager cost of 500 life points. Why it's meager? Sometimes you might not be able to pay it. Sometimes it'll put you in the cowboy range. You could do 3 if you truly wanted to. Never seen 3 Dust in a deck because you can already have triple MST. You probably only need 2 Dust, but it depends on your ratio of MST, trap stuns, Dust, and whatever other form of spell and trap card destruction you have, what number is correct for you. Now All of these cards is limited. Mucker's Cosmo and Soul Drain is fairly common among all side decks. Stop Graveyard Reliant decks. Eradication of Endemic Virus. This mainly to take out heavy spell or heavy trap decks. You need to tribute a Dark Monster 2500 attack or more though, so you need to make sure you have a target in the extra deck for it. Crazy Box. It's a strong card still. It's up to you though. Do you want to side deck it? When I ran Crazy Box, I honestly only ran Crazy Box to beat over Skill Drain, because Skill Drain is a problematic card for the deck. And I didn't want to draw this, mostly because if I made Crazy Box, I didn't want to just get rid of it immediately. And if you have two monsters to XYZ with, you want to go for another monster unless for some reason you can't. The Transmigration Prophecy, it's been an overlooked card this format and last format, because this targets two cards and either play a graveyard or targets stuff in the graveyard. Obviously return it to the deck before the card can resolve. It can be used to recycle T key while bouncing other cards to the opponent's extra deck. I got rid of 2 Stardust Dragon Assault modes before with this. 2 Stardust Dragon Assault modes is dumb, but he wasn't happy at all that I got rid of both of them when he clearly thought he was going to win the match and used both of their effects that turn. An Imperial Wall, good Dragon Hate, useful Fate Hate, decent, well, good against Boojins too. It works against most decks used actually to a decent extent outside of Mud Mills and Fire Fist. A few decks on the rise, however, that this isn't that great against. Not Gigi Yakakuri, Chronomery, however it's pronounced, but that card isn't in the TCG yet either. A Wall will take a dip in usage next format, so you have to reevaluate how good it is in the side deck. If you do run it, you don't need 3 unless you're really afraid of that specific matchup. Most of these side deck cards you only need 2 of unless you're really afraid of something. Then in that case you could run 3. Making sure I didn't time out again like that spell video. But next, Guzzin Match. Guzzin Match gonna take a dip in popularity too next format, but it's good against Dragon Rulers. Yeah, it can work decent against Prophecy too. It doesn't affect your deck at all, unlike Wall. Wall stops your Sombre plays, so you have to be careful with that. But Guzzin doesn't hurt you really as much. It does limit some of your extra deck summoning, but Guzzin is gonna cripple your opponent a lot more than it will stop you from making plays. So that's why Guzzin should be considered when making your side. Wall in some cases it will only be as effective against your opponent as it might be against you if you listen in spell books. If Fate already is set when you activate this, Fate is still alive because they could chain it to it. Next, DNA Surgery. DNA Surgery is good against books and Boojins. and a few other decks. It makes all the monsters on the field one type. If you need to, run 2 as always. 7 Tools of the Bandits. Negates, well, like I said, negates. For 1,000 life points, you can negate the activation of a trap core and destroy it. Some specific times, you might need to use 7 Tools of the Bandits over a core like Royal Decree or Trap Stun, because it's a counter trap card. You can negate an opponent's trap stun while it has a cost, and Dark Bribe doesn't. Trap stun leaves at a 0 or +0 for both players. Next we got Mistake. You could chain it to one of your opponent's gonna search a card from that deck. Stop the Surge. For some people, it's an additional Thunder King Ryu. The price went down from it because of the rulers getting hit. This was $32 like 2 or 3 weeks ago at its lowest. There's also a daily against books if used at the correct time. Mind Crush pretty much universal. If you need to go against anything, you just have to actually wait for them to search something or take an educated guess based on a card that they played, what they have in their hand. And last but not least, Royal Decree. Your deck hates back row, and yet your deck sometimes run a lot of back row. Depending on how you build your deck, you should have Royal Decree at main, side, or neither. It totally depends on how you build the deck, your preference style. Because Trap Stun is only temporary. This is permanent. This is a continuous trap card that you can Magic Planner though. It's bounceable by penalties. There's many good things about Royal Decree. One of the factors that it essentially fights off most of the side deck cards that people side against Constellars, which makes it a good benefit for the Constellar side deck. Though, depending on when you draw it, it might hinder you more than your opponent. And that's all that I really have to say on the topic of Royal Decree. And the best way to find out what cards work for you is really to test them. Test them a lot. Edge your deck. See what cards don't do their job. Edit again. Test more. There's a lot of trial and error when you putting together a deck, especially a deck like Constella's. So it's gonna take some time. These choices, like the rest of my videos, was mostly all the choices that came to mind when I played the deck or when I see people play the deck. And with that, that's the end of this video. Like if you like, leave your comments below. Tell me, should there be another video in this group? Tell me about cards I missed. Just honestly tell me anything. And go Constellars.